Welcome back to Respiration Biology UTME 2025. Okay, now fermentation is an anaerobic process that allows cells to convert the NADH that is produced in glycolysis into NAD+, which can then be recycled back. Now, if you look at what we have here, I've mentioned two big words. We have NAD+, we have NAD+, and we also have NADH. Now, what exactly am I talking about? This NADH here, to make you understand it better, I call it a power bank. Why? You know, a power bank does two things. It can give power and it can take power. So in this case now, what we need is energy. So NAD+ can save energy and it can also give energy. You get? Now, this NAD+ alone has 3 ATP inside it. So what am I saying? This NADH rather, one molecule of NADH will give you 3 molecules of ATP, which of course is very good. So when I said that there's need for NAD+, because these guys will later give you NADH. I'm talking about NAD+ will later give NADH. So they are very, very important in the process. Okay. Now, in aerobic respiration, the pyruvate molecules then go on to mitochondria to undergo pyruvate oxidation and the electron transport chain. I mentioned this in the previous slide. Now, in anaerobic process, the pyruvate and NADH molecules go on to undergo fermentation. Remember that this is anaerobic. There is no oxygen and there's nothing for it to do in the mitochondria. Because I already told you that the aerobic respiration takes place in the mitochondria. And what are the processes that take place there? Pyruvate oxidation, which other one? Krebs cycle and electron transport chain. But this guy, there is no oxygen. So it doesn't have anything to do with mitochondria. So now, the pyruvate that has been produced as a product of glycolysis itself and the NADH molecules produced too will go to fermentation because there is no oxygen. Now, and it will now produce NAD+. We need the NAD+. Because it's going to be used again when we go back to glycolysis. Now, because look at it here, molecule necessary for glycolysis to occur. The NAD+ is then available to cycle back and allow another round of glycolysis. It is just very simple. Just very simple. Okay, so let's look at this. Efficiency of both processes. What does it mean? What am I talking about when I said efficiency? Like how effective are these two processes now? Which one do you think is better? Now, stay with me. Aerobic respiration is better. Now, let's do this. Let's look at aerobic respiration. Like what do we gain from aerobic respiration? Okay. Now, aerobic respiration, number one, gives a good amount of energy. It gives a good amount of energy, ATP. This is to tell you that it is power. Yeah. Then your glucose is completely broken down in aerobic. Glucose is completely broken down. So it is good. It is very, very good. Very, very good. Although it occurs where? In the presence of oxygen. Okay, so let's look at the cousin, anaerobic respiration. Now, these are some of the questions or some of the topics that they may want to ask you in JAMB. Anaerobic respiration, look at it. This guy gives a good amount of energy. Anaerobic respiration does not. Doesn't produce enough energy. Why? No oxygen. Doesn't produce enough energy. Then what else again? Glucose. Glucose is converted to lactic acid. Now let me explain something to you. Now look at this lactic acid here. The lactic acid is a compound that is produced from anaerobic. Yes, we've talked about that. And the lactic acid is stored in between the muscles. Now, this lactic acid still has a a good amount of energy inside it because it is glucose that has not been completely broken down. So all the energy in it have not been released. So there's still some energy left in the lactic acid. Now there's a problem. If you are currently using anaerobic respiration, let's say during sport, right? During sport, you're going through anaerobic respiration. Now, the lactic acid produced in your body can be stored in the muscle, but when you get to a level that the amount of lactic acid in the muscle has become too much for the muscle to bear, it becomes a problem. That is what causes muscle pull. Yes, that's what causes muscle pull. You get? Now, if you are so fortunate that you are able to finish whatever you're doing using anaerobic respiration, when you go back, like when you get back and you're done, you tend to breathe heavily. Why do you do that? That is what we call you paying what we call oxygen debt. Apologies. You pay what we call oxygen debt. Why? Because you will now get, this is lactic acid now, plus this oxygen to help you completely break down this lactic acid. So that is when you will now become normal, because you have paid the debt of the oxygen that you did not use, or that the oxygen that you're owing because of the presence of lactic acid. I hope that is clear. Okay, can we move on? Okay, let's look at some of the questions that we have here. Now, aerobic respiration takes place in the cytoplasm, lysosome, nucleus, and mitochondria. Now, please don't be confused. Aerobic respiration takes place here. Is there already? It takes place here in the mitochondria. And don't forget, I told you that this guy is named powerhouse. It is named powerhouse because bulk of the processes in respiration will take place there. Okay, so let's move on. Now, in cellular respiration, energy is stored in form of, I've told you that, in form of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which means adenosine and triphosphate group. So what's the answer? Our answer is B. Okay. Now let's move on. Now, the part of the cell solely responsible for respiration is nucleus, nucleolus, Golgi apparatus. Now, stay with me. When we're talking about that, I mentioned cytoplasm, right? But look at all these options. If cytoplasm was here, it would have been very confusing. You get? But I mentioned cytoplasm earlier. But look at what we have. We have nucleus, we have nucleolus, we have mitochondria, and Golgi apparatus. So our answer is C. Now let's do something. What if I want to try you and I decide to switch my options? I take out this nucleus and I put cytoplasm there. What would you have chosen as your answer? Even if I take out nucleolus and I put cytosol there, what would you have chosen as your answer? Now, stay with me. Respiration takes place here, it takes place here, it takes place here, but not here. So out of the 4 options, 3 of them can be right. So which one would you choose? If I want to go for any answer, mitochondria will be the answer. Why? Because the amount of ATP generated in these two, they are not up to 10% of what we generate in these mitochondria. Please keep that. It is very, very important. You can just decide to give you very confusing questions or tricky questions. Okay, the next one. The process of anaerobic respiration of yeast in sugar solution is known as, the process of anaerobic respiration of yeast in sugar solution is known as dash. We have oxidation, we have fermentation, we have decomposition and tissue respiration. If you are someone that bakes, like either you make popov or bread, this will be quite easy for you because we use yeast in those processes, right? And why do you think you add yeast? Now, yeast is something that would help you, it will help what you have made, is it dough or butter, to rise, right? Why? Because by the time this yeast now is undergoing the process of respiration, it produces carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide will now add space to what you have made. So it makes it look what? Bulkier. It gives it space, makes it look bigger. Exactly. And that process is known as fermentation. Okay, so let's move on. During anaerobic respiration in skeletal muscles, pyruvic acid is dash. Now we have A reduced to lactic acid, B, oxidized to ethanol, C, oxidized to lactic acid, and reduced to lactic acid? The answer here, now, it is not, ethanol is completely out of the option. Ethanol is out of the option. It is reduced to lactic acid. Reduced, oh, that is what we have here too. It is reduced to lactic acid. It is not oxidized to lactic acid. The only place we have oxidation taking place in that entire process is the pyruvic. Are you getting it now? Like pyruvate oxidation, and it's not lactic acid. That is in aerobic respiration, and this guy is anaerobic respiration. This question is anaerobic respiration. Okay, so let's move on. Question number 6. When a mammal respires anaerobically for a long time, I think I've mentioned that while I was talking. When a mammal respires anaerobically for a long time, pyruvic acid is converted to acetyl-CoA. Now, this acetyl-CoA, let me say something about it. This acetyl-CoA, this CoA, actually, it is written CoA. Now, you have done enzymes. I think we'll still get to enzymes because we have enzymes to learn. Now, this CoA is a cofactor. Like, it kind of helps enzymes to function. They help enzymes to perform their responsibilities. Okay, now what's the next option? More energy is released from fat in the body, then lactic acid accumulates in the muscle. The Krebs cycle is fully completed. When I was explaining this, I made mention of when you are doing sport, right? And I said you are now using anaerobic respiration because there's no oxygen to move your pyruvic or pyruvic acid or pyruvate into the mitochondria, where the remaining three processes would now take place. So what happened? Lactic acid accumulates in the muscle, and I told you that if this accumulation gets to a certain level, it starts causing problem. It causes muscle pull. Okay, so let's move on. The process of anaerobic respiration of yeast in sugar is known as fermentation. Yes, we saw something like this earlier on. Then, the product of respiration are, let's look at it. I gave you glucose. Your glucose plus this, right? So what are you going to get? You get carbon dioxide, you get water, and you get what? Energy, right? So what are the products here? Nitrogen and water. Is there nitrogen there? No. Nitrogen and carbon dioxide, is it there? No. Water and carbon dioxide, can we see it? Yes. Then carbon dioxide and water. The answer is D. Carbon dioxide and water. Okay. So let's move on. Anaerobic respiration results in the production of anaerobic, which means oxygen is not involved. Oxygen is not involved. So we have more energy than aerobic. This is a big lie. More energy, no. Anaerobic can never produce more energy than aerobic. Then no energy, no. Anaerobic will still produce energy. It will just not be enough. Then an equal amount of energy to aerobic respiration. No, too. No, then less energy than aerobic respiration. Our answer is D. Bam. So let's move on. The role of ATP include all the following except the role of ATP. Don't forget what ATP is. It is adenosine triphosphate. And don't forget that this question has something at the end, except, right? Okay. So what's the first one? Provision of energy to do work in living organisms. That sounds good. Let's see if we can see something better. Then transmission of nerve impulses. Your ATP doesn't work there. When you are talking about transmission of nerve impulses, you're talking about what? Your neurons. Then what do we have? Keeping the body warm in homothermic animals. No. Then producing water during aerobic respiration. The proper answer for this topic, this question is A. Provision of energy to do work in living organisms. I told you, aerobic respiration or respiration generally has a responsibility to produce what? Energy. Okay, so let's move on to a new topic, and this is what? Homeostasis. Homeostasis is one of the topics that we have in, I think, year 10 or SS1. So take a break, then we'll continue when we come back. Thank you so much.